Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's multi-use turf facility is a go. After a lengthy and at times contentious debate that carried on past 3 o'clock this morning, City Council voted 7-6 to ratify its decision to allow contractors to bid on the project as soon as the tender documents are finished. The council members who support the facility insist that residents will benefit for decades to come. But those on the other side say the project is too expensive to move forward in these uncertain times. Ryan Bonazzo has the story.
After council dismissed a recommendation earlier this month from city manager Norm Gale asking to delay the turf facility vote until as late as November of 2021, Councillor Mark Bentz mounted a last-ditch effort to press pause for just 90 days. He says this would allow council time for sober second thought before charging ahead with a facility that could cost $42 million or more.
It allows us to display to the public that we are careful and thoughtful with the money that they entrust with us.
And while the idea of a 3-month delay appeased councillors Peng Yu and Brian McKinnon, who previously voted against the 15-month delay, council still voted down Bentz's motion 7-6 and later ratified its decision to put the project out to tender by that same thin margin. The move sparking some heated words around the council table.
A couple months ago, exceptional times. We're living in exceptional times. What a crock of bull crap that was. Exceptional times, and then we can't even give 90 days to actually assess our financial picture.
People are so pig-headed that they won't even listen to the community.
I refuse to sit here and be called pig-headed and arrogant. I'm not the do-nothing counselor. I'm not the status quo. I'm here for progress.
We're sitting here at a 7-6 vote on a $42 million expenditure at 2 o'clock in the morning in the summertime. Really, this is not the way to carry out business. There will definitely be the potential for a loss of trust.
We didn't say, let's make sure we delay it till 2 o'clock. This is when it is. This is democracy in action. No one's hiding anything. This is a public meeting. This is on TV. It can't be more transparent than this.
While the soccer community and other user groups passionately support the project, the CEDC and the Chamber of Commerce have each expressed major concerns. And online public feedback suggests that most residents feel at the very least that it's not the right time given the expenses associated with COVID-19. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
As the city presses forward with the turf facility, it's also trying to get a sense of how the pandemic will impact future city budgets. Thunder Bay's projected $7 million COVID-19 shortfall this year has been covered by funding from senior levels of government, but city staff are also forecasting an $8.4 million hit next year as well. And council still has to figure out how to account for that at budget time. Jonathan Wilson explains.
It may take several years for Thunder Bay to fully recover from the financial impacts of COVID-19. Early projections show that the city could face an $8.4 million shortfall in 2021 if the current restrictions on public gatherings remain in place for the duration of next year. And while the city could rely on a tax increase to cover some of those costs, Council Budget Chair Mark Bentz says it should instead use reserves and efficiencies found through the Program and Services Review.
We want to deal with COVID as a one-time cost, not as a taxable item for forever.
He adds that once that charge is heaped onto residents, that money then stays in place for future budgets as well. After nearly 3 hours of debate, Council tasked administration with presenting a budget that holds the tax increase near the rate of inflation, that excludes all pandemic-related costs. Council will then decide how best to fund that shortfall.
So we're dealing with the Canada Games complex.
Council also voted to reopen several facilities next month. The complex will open with much reduced capacity to the delight of the Thunderbolt Swim Club and the Thunder Bay Diving Club. It will cost nearly $300,000 to operate the facility from September through to the end of the year. Municipal childcare centres at Ogden and Woodcrest will also reopen. 5 more arenas, in addition to Current River, which reopened last week, should be up and running in late September. And the 55 Plus Centre would reopen at that time as well, as will several community centres. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
It will be at least December before the city decides to make any significant operational changes to Thunder Bay Fire Rescue. Consultants presented the final strategic master fire plan to council last night. The lengthy document contains several recommendations to promote efficiency and cost savings, But there are also a number of fire station realignment options that could reduce the current complement of 8 stations. Those come with upfront capital costs totaling anywhere from $2 to $12 million. The local Firefighters Association warns that eliminating stations could increase response times. Acting Fire Chief Greg Hankio says there's still plenty to do before those decisions are made.
Some more significant data that we need to look at in order to inform council in an appropriate manner to make an educated decision. And beyond that, there may be other options that that the consultant's report hasn't considered that we may be able to consider that are cost effective. We can look at things like return on investment as an example. What is the true cost of relocating a headquarters to Station 3? So I think a lot of work to be done between now and December.
Fire officials and city administration will report back with recommendations by the end of the year. Federal Minister Patty Hajdu says her government will be there for the Anishinaabe Nation in regards to a safe return to school for First Nations kids from their communities. This comes after Deputy Grand Chief Derek Fox claimed that NAN has received little to no additional funding to prepare schools for the pandemic. Its 49 communities deliver education to nearly 9,000 elementary and secondary students. The organization submitted a proposal for safe reopening to the federal government over 2 months ago, requesting $33 million for COVID-19 precautions. Hajdu says she's confident that the Minister of Indigenous Services, Mark Miller, will be able to reach a resolution.
But I do know that Minister Miller has spoken with Grand Chief Fiddler recently in the last several days, has committed to Grand Chief Fiddler that we will be there regardless of what the needs are, and we just need to better understand what the $33 million I think is for, and how we can accelerate the process. We want families and children to be safe, regardless of where they go to school. But Minister Miller has committed to Grand Chief Fiddler that will be there for them.
NAN says the lack of government support has already led them to push back the opening of Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School until October 28th. The district's medical officer of health says she's optimistic that the reopening of public and Catholic schools in this area can go smoothly without any major COVID outbreaks. Dr. Janet DeMille has been working with school boards on the complicated process of returning to class.
I don't think that just the reopening of the schools on September 8th or whenever they are, is going to necessarily cause the numbers to go up.
DeMille says because the level of community spread has been so low in the district in recent weeks, she thinks that will help to maintain low levels of spread inside schools as well. However, because the fall brings with it the prime virus season, we may see more cases in October or November, especially if there's increased COVID testing in the school systems. But overall, DeMille says the district is well positioned for classes to resume in our schools.
It is a big thing. It's an important thing that we need to do, and I think in many ways we couldn't be in a better situation right now, as we've just discussed, in terms of the level of COVID in our area. And I really hope that continues over the next couple of weeks so we can reopen schools in this kind of scenario. There's a framework for reopening schools that includes all the measures that I would expect to see that schools have to implement in their facilities to be able to keep the virus controlled.
Meantime, Ontario is reporting 100 new cases of COVID-19 today, marking the province's 5th straight day of new cases at or over 100. Yesterday, the province posted 105 cases. Ontario's Minister of Health says the province processed more than 20,000 tests in the last 24 hours. 30 of the province's public health units have 5 or fewer cases, while 18, including Thunder Bay, reported no new cases. Premier Doug Ford is firing back amid criticism over a new government ad campaign. That campaign is aimed at publicizing Ontario's back-to-school plans. Ford says it's necessary to keep parents informed, and he also says those who are panning it are just playing politics. Colin DeMello reports.
After weeks of controversy over the back-to-school plan, the Ford government is fighting back. In an attempt to reassure worried parents, the government is taking to the radio airwaves with commercials about its plan.
Our plan includes physical distancing, putting more nurses in schools, masking, enhanced cleaning and hand sanitization, and other measures to ensure the well-being of students and school staff. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
The radio commercials are accompanied by a digital advertising campaign that highlights the basic points of the back-to-school plan.
It's critical that the parents know. It's not about playing politics like the other ones are doing. I believe in communicating to the parents, the teachers, and as well to the students.
The ads have been approved by Ontario's Auditor General to ensure that they are not partisan. But critics say they don't provide parents with the entire picture.
I think they are misleading. I think that we have enough experts out there, whether you're talking about the registered nurses or local public health units, and certainly school boards themselves saying this isn't good enough. And so I don't think the government is being really truthful with Ontarians.
Premier Doug Ford also acknowledged today that the government needs to take the extra step of sitting down with school boards to go through the plan with a fine-tooth comb.
And we're going to lay out very, very clear, and we're going to answer any questions until there's no confusion. No one's going out there and saying it hasn't been communicated.
As the government looks to turn the tide of public opinion before students return to class.
The latest figures from the Thunder Bay International Airport show just how badly the facility has been hit by COVID-19. Passengers have been few and far between for months at the local airport, and the figures are perhaps more telling than the empty terminal building itself. The staggering drop in flights and passengers amounted to a $10,000 daily revenue loss for the airport during April and May. CEO Ed Schmidtke doesn't expect things to get much better anytime soon, as they aren't sure how travel patterns for the fall and winter months will roll out. But he is hoping the gradual increase of airline customers will continue.
At our worst in April, we were down to 4% of what is normal volume. Our average since the middle of March, when the downturn started, is 88% of our traffic is missing. We're running at 12% of normal. We're hoping that August is going to finish at somewhere around 25% of normal.
Schmidtke says all airport capital projects that don't have a contractual obligation have been postponed indefinitely, such as new airport fire trucks and care and maintenance projects. A 30-year-old Southern Ontario woman remains in custody following an incident in Nipigon this weekend that claimed the life of a man. OPP officers were called to Stillwater Park on Highway 1117 just before 4 in the morning Sunday and found an unresponsive man outside of a vehicle. He was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The victim's been identified as a 32-year-old, also from Southern Ontario. Police say the victim and the accused were known to each other. The woman has been charged with dangerous driving causing death. Thunder Bay police are asking for the public's help in identifying 2 suspects in a break and enter at a local business 2 weeks ago. Officers were dispatched after an alarm went off at Jangles Bead Store on 11th Avenue just after 5 o'clock in the morning on August 11th. Police found signs of a possible forced entry, and the investigation revealed 2 men had entered the business but fled before officers arrived. The surveillance footage shows both suspects at the time of the break and enter. One suspect wore lighter clothing with a hood up and mask covering his lower face, while the second suspect wore camouflage pants and a jacket with light-colored writing on the back and a design on the arms. Anyone with information is being asked to contact Thunder Bay Police. And a Thunder Bay man believes he has made quite the fossil discovery on the rocky shores of the Current River.
Holy crap, finally found something like significant down here. Yeah, I was quite excited about it.
Larry McDowell was swimming with his son at the river just off Centennial Park Road yesterday when he stumbled across what he believes to be the fossilized teeth of a mastodon or woolly mammoth. McDowell cross-referenced images of mastodon teeth online and came to the conclusion that what he's found is the remnants of the prehistoric creature. McDowell's always loved searching for artifacts, and he frequents the area often, keeping his eye out for potential fossils.
I've been collecting fossils since I was probably 7 years old. And yeah, when I walk around rocks like this, I always walk with my head down because that's, because you find lots of stuff, especially in rock like this. It looks like it used to be mud in the prehistoric days. There's all kinds of stuff sticking out of it. There's rocks coming out of these rocks. Down there's some more bones and stuff like that, eh? So this is really good for looking for fossils.
Lakehead University anthropologist Matthew Boyd and geologist Pete Hollings both admit that it does resemble a mastodon molar tooth, but Boyd says the bedrock is much too old to host a mammoth or mastodon fossil. And he says it's probably just an area of natural mineralization within the volcanic bedrock. Hollings adds that it looks more like a block of quartz in the gunflint. You be the judge.
Pretty interesting. Fiona, kind of a cool